Hi, I'm Mrs. Bancroft, and today I am going to show you how to use a bread machine and just how easy it is to make a really delicious sort of homemade loaf of bread. Today we're going to make a cinnamon loaf of yeast bread and some really simple ingredients to start with. So in our bread machine, we use what's called a bucket to mix all the ingredients. We actually don't have to mix anything ourselves. So we're just going to dump all the ingredients in. So it's important to know what order to add your ingredients to your bucket. We don't start with flour, which might seem like the logical choice. And that's because it makes it harder for the mixer to mix everything all together well. So we're actually going to start with our liquid. So that today is 1.5 cups of milk. I did warm this up, so it's about 80-ish degrees. And the reason that we warm up milk for a yeast spread is because yeast needs 2 things in order to do its thing to make bread rise. One of them is warmth, so that warm milk will give that. And the other is sugar. So milk actually has some natural sugar occurring in it, so that could do it, but we're also gonna add 3 tablespoons of regular white sugar, and that's gonna help our yeast really grow. So there's our sugar. Our other liquid is butter today. So I have 2 tablespoons of melted butter. This isn't straight out of the microwave. It's cooled down a little bit because you don't want it to go like really hot and then maybe scald your milk or make your milk go bad. So a slightly warm butter in there. And then we are gonna add in our other dry things besides our flour first. So we've got salt and cinnamon in here, our flavorings. I have them in the same dish. The salt actually might seem like kind of a funny thing to add to a sweet bread, but anything that's sweet, you always want to balance that baked good with a little bit of salt because it gives balance to flavor and it will actually make it end up tasting a little bit sweeter. And the last non-major ingredient, right, other than flour that we're going to put in is our yeast. So this is instant yeast. It is actually alive, but it's dried. So as soon as I add it to the milk and other liquid ingredients, it's going to start doing its thing. If you've taken biology with Ms. Hoppes, you know yeast is going to eat up some of that sugar and it's going to start fermenting is what it's called. And that's what's going to give our bread the rise. The last thing I'm going to add is our flour. So I have 4 cups of bread flour here. And if I were mixing this in a mixer, I might add it in gradually. But because it's in the bread machine, I am going to, and I did wash my hands before I start, so I am going to kind of make sure it all goes in and not all over the counter. It seems like a lot of flour, and that's because it is. The bulk of bread is flour. It's what gives any baked good, including bread, structure. It's kind of like the building blocks of the bread. So that's all of our ingredients in the bucket. I'm not going to stir it. Instead, I am going to add it right into our bread machine, which I'll show you next. So now we have all of our ingredients in our bucket. We're going to put it into the bread machine, and this is probably the hardest step out of everything. So you lift open the lid, and there is actually a screw-in mechanism at the bottom. So I just put it in and click it into place. That's it. And then you close the lid and you have to just make sure that all your buttons are right. So there's choices for the size of a loaf, what color you want it to come out, right? Do you want it to be very light, or are you looking for a darker loaf, like cooked longer, and what kind of bread it is. So this is a sweet bread that I will try to put raisins in a little bit. We'll see how that goes. I've actually never successfully done it. So I am going to choose a larger loaf because that is what I did. I made the largest one because why bother making a small loaf of bread? And then I want that medium color. I don't want it too light. I don't want it too dark. And it is a sweet bread, so I make sure that it's on the right category, which now it is. And all I have to do is hit. And that noise that you hear is the mechanism in the bottom stirring all the ingredients together. And in about 3 hours, like the clock says, we will have a fresh baked loaf of bread that was so easy to make, but tastes like it took a long time. And this is our final product. So it took 3 hours in the bread maker. The bread maker did all of the work for us. It stirs it, it does a ferment. There's 3 stages to that. And then it actually bakes it in there too. It has a heating element. So our finished product is a cinnamon bread, and I will cut it open so we can see that beautiful, what we call crumb on the inside. So I am just gonna slice it. can see just how good it came out. So you really want the inside of your bread to be a nice uniform kind of texture. And it totally is a nice and square. This would make a great French toast bread, a great toast with butter and maybe cinnamon sugar, a really tasty morning time kind of treat. And that was as easy as dumping all those things into the bread maker and hitting the button.